The silence of the engine was a death rattle in the roaring storm. One moment, Elias was fighting the wheel; the next, the world was a screaming vortex of metal and shattered glass. Then nothing. He awoke to the rhythmic drip of water on metal, a sound as steady and indifferent as a ticking clock. The rain had stopped. Pinned in the wreckage, a sharp, searing pain in his leg, he saw him. An old man standing by the side of the road, holding a lantern, though the sun had already begun to pierce through the bruised, purple clouds. He hadn't been there before the crash. Elias was sure of it. The man's face was a road map of wrinkles, his eyes holding a stillness that seemed to absorb the chaos of the scene. He didn't rush to help. He simply watched, his gaze penetrating, as if he were looking not at Elias but into him. "The world has been trying to break you for a long time," the old man said, his voice a low, gravelly rumble that was barely audible above the whisper of the wind. "It seems it has finally succeeded." The words were not unkind, but they were devoid of pity. They were a statement of fact, as cold and hard as the rain-soaked asphalt. And in that moment, trapped and broken, Elias knew that this strange, impossible encounter was not an accident. He was being tested. He had been fleeing a life of quiet desperation, a life where he felt like a ghost, a hollow man shaped by the opinions and expectations of others. Now, faced with a literal and metaphorical wreck, he was confronted by a truth he could no longer outrun. His real prison wasn't the mangled steel of his car. It was the fragile architecture of his own mind. The old man raised the lantern, its warm glow pushing back the encroaching shadows. "A fortress can be breached from the outside," he said, his eyes locking with Elias. "But the strongest citadels are those that are betrayed from within. You have heard the commandments of your fears, your desires, your society. But there is one you have never heard, an unspoken commandment, the one that teaches you how to build a fortress that no army can conquer, that no storm can shake. The question is, are you willing to listen? Or will you choose to die here in the wreckage of a life you never truly lived?" The old man, who called himself Silas, did not help Elias from the car. He simply stood there, a silent sentinel, until Elias, driven by a surge of adrenaline and a desperate, newfound will, dragged himself from the twisted metal, his legs screaming in protest. Silas then led him not to a hospital, but through the dense, dripping forest to a secluded cabin, its stones slick with moss, its chimney breathing a thin plume of smoke into the crisp air. For weeks, Silas tended to Elias' physical wounds with a practiced, almost detached efficiency, using herbs and poultices that smelled of the earth. But the true healing, the true training, was for the wounds Elias couldn't see. Silas was not a gentle teacher. He was a crucible. He spoke in koans and contradictions, his lessons delivered not in lectures, but in the harsh, unforgiving classroom of the wilderness. He would leave Elias alone for days with nothing but a knife and the clothes on his back, forcing him to confront his own profound incompetence, his city-bred helplessness. "You are weak," Silas told him one evening as they sat before a crackling fire, "not because you lack physical strength, but because you have tethered your soul to things you cannot control. You crave the approval of people who do not care about you. You despair over outcomes you cannot influence. You are a slave to every passing whim of fortune. You have built your identity on sand, and now you are surprised that the tide has washed it away." This was the first lesson, the first brick in the foundation of the inner citadel, radical self-sovereignty. "The world will give you 1,000 labels," Silas said, his voice as sharp as the wind whistling through the pines. "It will call you a success, a failure, a hero, a villain. These are just words. They are the rattling of chains. The first unspoken commandment is this: you are the sole author of your own definition. Your worth is not determined by the applause of the crowd or the size of your bank account. It is forged in the crucible of your own character, in the silent, unseen battles you fight within yourself every single day." Elias struggled with this. His entire life had been a performance for an invisible audience. To let go of that, to stop seeking validation from outside himself, felt like stepping off a cliff. He would find himself subconsciously trying to impress Silas, to win his approval, but the old man was a mirror, reflecting back only what was already there, offering neither praise nor condemnation. One day, frustrated and exhausted after failing to start a fire for hours, Elias broke down. "I can't do this," he sobbed, the words a raw admission of his own inadequacy. Silas stared at him, his expression unreadable. "Good," he said. "Now that you have accepted your weakness, you can begin to build your strength. True strength is not the absence of weakness. It is the courage to face it." The second unspoken commandment was revealed during a brutal early winter storm that trapped them in the cabin for days. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, and the snow piled up against the door, isolating them completely from the world. Elias felt a familiar panic rising in his chest, the claustrophobia of being trapped, not just in the cabin but in his own life. "You are at war with the storm," Silas observed, as Elias paced the small room like a caged animal. "You wish it would end. You curse its inconvenience. You are trying to bend reality to your will, and so you suffer." He picked up a piece of firewood and tossed it into the flames. "The second commandment is amor fati, love your fate. Do not merely tolerate the storm, embrace it, find the beauty in its fury, find the lesson in its isolation. The storm is not happening to you, it is just happening. It is your judgment, your resistance, that turns it into a torment. The obstacle is the way. The snow that traps you is also the snow that forces you to be still, to confront the tempest within your own mind. Stop fighting the world, and you will find that you have nothing to fear from it." This was a profound shift in perspective for Elias. He had always seen life as a series of problems to be solved, of obstacles to be overcome. The idea of embracing hardship, of loving his fate, was revolutionary. He began to practice it in small ways. He started to see the pain in his leg not as a curse, but as a teacher of patience and resilience. He saw his isolation not as a punishment, but as an opportunity for introspection. He was learning to stop being a victim of his circumstances and to start being the creator of his own experience. The walls of his inner citadel were rising, not of stone, but of a new, more resilient way of thinking. The third commandment came into focus as Elias' body healed and he grew stronger, more capable. He began to feel a sense of pride in his newfound skills, in his ability to survive and even thrive in the wilderness. With this pride came a familiar, dangerous thought. He wanted to go back. He wanted to show them all. The woman who had left him, the boss who had overlooked him, the world that had deemed him a failure. He wanted to prove them wrong. He confessed this to Silas one evening. The old man listened patiently, then shook his head. "You have learned to be strong," he said, "but you still seek the validation of the weak. You have built a fortress, but you are ready to abandon it for the sake of a parade. The third unspoken commandment is this: act for the sake of virtue, not for the sake of applause. Be a good man, not to be seen as a good man. Be strong, not to impress others, but because it is the right and noble thing to be. The opinions of others are smoke. They are a fleeting, insubstantial vapor. Your character is stone. Build upon the stone. Let the smoke drift away on the wind." He then gave Elias a final, brutal lesson. He told him a story about another man who had come to him, years ago, broken and lost. A man who had learned the ways of the inner citadel, who had become strong and resilient. "He went back to the city," Silas said, his voice low. "He became a great success. He built an empire. He had the respect, the admiration, the fear of all who knew him. And then he lost it all in a market crash. The world that had crowned him a king now called him a fool. And he killed himself. Because his citadel was a facade. It was built not to protect his own soul, but to impress the world. When the world turned its back on him, he discovered that his fortress was empty." The story hit Elias like a physical blow. He saw himself in that man. He saw the seductive, deadly trap of seeking external validation, even with the best of intentions. It was a lesson he would never forget. His strength had to be for himself. His honor had to be his own. His citadel had to be a sanctuary, not a stage. Soon after, a hunter stumbled upon their cabin. He was the first person Elias had seen in months. The hunter was a garrulous, friendly man, full of news from the outside world. He spoke of the city, of its politics, its dramas, its endless, frantic dance. The old Elias would have been desperate to connect with him, to hear every detail, to feel a part of that world again. The new Elias listened politely, but he felt a profound sense of detachment. The hunter's world seemed distant, unreal, like a play being performed on a faraway stage. He felt no desire to return to it. He had found a new world, a realer world within himself. When the hunter left, Silas turned to him. "It is time for you to go," he said. "Go where?" Elias asked, a sense of panic flaring within him. "I have nothing to go back to." "You are not going back," Silas corrected him. "You are going forward. You are not the man who crashed his car in the storm. That man is dead. You are a builder. You have the tools. You have the knowledge. Now you must go and live it. The world is your training ground. Every person you meet, every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen your walls, to deepen your foundations. The unspoken commandment is not a creed to be memorized. It is a life to be lived." Silas walked him to the edge of the forest, to a small, seldom used road. He placed a hand on Elias' shoulder. "Remember," he said, his voice a final, powerful benediction, "the happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Guard them well, for they are the bricks and mortar of your citadel. And do not forget the final commandment, the one that gives meaning to all the others, memento mori. Remember that you will die. Live accordingly." Elias walked away from the mountains, from the man who had saved him by showing him how to save himself. He did not look back. He was not a refugee returning from exile. He was a warrior marching into a new campaign. He was a king returning to reclaim his kingdom, a kingdom that was not of this world but within him. The city awaited, with its temptations, its distractions, its endless noise. But Elias was not afraid. He was a man who had heard the unspoken commandment. He was a man who had built his inner citadel, and he was ready for the storm. What is this unspoken commandment? It is not a secret whispered from master to disciple. It is a truth that is screamed at us by the very nature of reality, but which we have been taught to ignore. It is the silent, unyielding law of the universe that says, "You are the master of your own experience. The world will happen as it happens. People will act as they act. Fortune will smile and it will frown. These are things you do not control. They are the weather." The unspoken commandment is the radical, life-altering realization that you can build a shelter from this weather, a fortress of the mind, an inner citadel from which you can observe the storm without being touched by it. This is not a philosophy of passivity. It is a philosophy of ultimate action. It is the understanding that the only action that truly matters is the action you take within the kingdom of your own mind. It is the relentless, moment-to-moment work of choosing your response to whatever life throws at you. It is the training of your perceptions, the discipline of your thoughts, the mastery of your emotions. Think of your mind as a garden. For most of your life, you have allowed anyone and everyone to wander into this garden. The opinions of others have been allowed to plant seeds of doubt and insecurity. The events of the world have been allowed to grow weeds of anger and fear. The words of your enemies have been allowed to poison the soil. You have been a careless, absentee landlord of your own most precious property. The unspoken commandment is a call to take back your land, to become a vigilant, ruthless gardener, to uproot the weeds of negativity, to fertilize the soil with thoughts of gratitude and resilience, to plant the seeds of virtue and wisdom. It is the understanding that the harvest of your life will be determined not by the weather, but by the quality of your gardening. How do you begin this work? You begin by drawing a line in the sand of your own consciousness, a line that separates what you can control from what you cannot. On one side of this line are your thoughts, your judgments, your actions. This is your domain. This is your kingdom. On the other side of the line is everything else. The past, the future, the economy, the actions and opinions of other people. This is not your domain. The unspoken commandment demands that you cease all military operations in this foreign territory. You call your troops home. You stop wasting your precious, finite energy trying to control the uncontrollable. You focus all your resources on the one battle that you can actually win, the battle for your own mind. This is the essence of the Stoic discipline of ascent. It is the practice of pausing before you react to any event and asking yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, you practice a kind of divine indifference. You accept it. You embrace it. You do not waste a single moment of your life in useless resistance. If the answer is yes, then you act. You act with courage, with wisdom, with justice, with temperance. You bring the full force of your character to bear on the one thing you can influence, the present moment. This is not easy. It is the work of a lifetime. It requires constant vigilance, constant practice, but the rewards are immeasurable. The reward is a state of mind that the ancient Stoics called apatheia. This is not apathy in the modern sense of the word. It is not a state of listless indifference. It is a state of profound tranquility, of unshakable inner peace. It is the mind of a warrior who can walk through a battlefield with a calm and steady heart. It is the mind of a king who can rule his kingdom with wisdom and justice, even in the midst of a rebellion. It is the freedom of a man who has broken the chains of his own emotional slavery. So I ask you, are you tired of being a slave? Are you tired of being a leaf in the wind, tossed about by the storms of life? Are you ready to become the mountain? Are you ready to hear the unspoken commandment and to begin the great work of building your inner citadel? This is not just a motivational speech. This is a call to arms, a call to join a silent revolution of men and women who are tired of the shallowness, the anxiety, the quiet desperation of modern life. We are the builders. We are the modern-day Stoics. We are the guardians of the inner citadel. Your first mission, should you choose to accept it, is to begin the practice of observation. For the next 24 hours, I want you to become a scientist of your own mind. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Notice how they arise, how they linger, how they pass away. Notice how they are triggered by external events. Notice how they try to hijack your emotions and dictate your actions. Do not try to stop them. Simply watch them as you would watch clouds passing in the sky. This is the first step to realizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. You are the sky, not the clouds. Then I want you to come back here and in the comments below write, "I am the sky." This is not just a comment. It is a declaration. It is a commitment. It is your first act as a builder. It is your pledge of allegiance to the kingdom of your own mind. By doing this, you will be joining a community of fellow builders, a tribe of warriors who will support you and challenge you and hold you accountable on this journey. This is the most important work you will ever do. Everything else is secondary. Your career, your relationships, your hobbies, they are all built upon the foundation of your own mind. If that foundation is weak, then everything you build upon it will eventually crumble. But if that foundation is strong, if you build an unshakable inner citadel, then you will be able to withstand any storm, to face any challenge, to live a life of profound meaning, purpose, and peace. The unspoken commandment has been spoken. The call has been made. The choice is yours. Will you answer it? Or will you hit the back button and return to the comfortable, familiar prison of your own undisciplined mind? The storm is coming. It is always coming. Will you be ready? Build your fortress. The time is now.